Great, great. All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, I want to make this an informal presentation and would love to have you share your own experiences, what has worked for you, what hasn't. I've added various chat activities throughout my presentation, so please feel free to share your thoughts, ideas, or resources there with everyone in this room today. I can't remember if you're able to unmute yourselves, but at the end when we have Q&A, you can also unmute yourself to ask any questions or share ideas also. Okay, so let's take a look at what I'll be covering today. I'm briefly going to go over some of the research that looks at collecting student feedback to improving teaching, and we'll also look at the why and the what and the when to gather student feedback. I'll also go over some ideas on how Canvas can be used to collect, share, and implement any feedback. And then we'll look at additional ideas on collecting feedback. And lastly, one of the hottest topics, not only here at the symposium, but just in education in general, is artificial intelligence. And I'll just briefly touch upon that and how you could possibly use generative AI to help you in creating questions and summarizing feedback that you receive from students. So as I mentioned, I've added some chat activities for us to share and have discussions, and these are the questions that I'll be asking during my presentation. So for those of us who do better with questions given prior to giving a response, feel free to take a screenshot of this so that you have access to these questions, because the first question is actually going to be my next slide, but you'll have more time to actually think about the questions as I go through my presentation, if you want to take a screenshot. And for those of us who are quick on our feet and can process responses on the spot, look forward to these activities throughout the presentation as well. All right, so using the chat again, I'd like you to share why you collect student feedback in your course. Is it because you're trying a new teaching strategy? Maybe you're implementing open educational resources, maybe to check if your online course is easy to navigate. Go ahead and type your response in the chat there. Make improvements to the course, support students, make changes as needed. Make the course better, definitely. Facilitation of the course, yes. Student learning, course improvement. Yes, what's working well? Yes, course expectations. Yes, definitely when testing out new, whether it's instructional techniques, instructional technology. Yes, fine-tuning assignments and curriculum, yeah. Student understanding of the outcomes. Oh, yeah. So asking the same questions at the end to identify improvements. Great. Yes. Making students feel welcomed and supported. Make connections, definitely. These are all great responses. If you have additional feedback or response, feel free to continue using the chat to share those then. So typically, student evaluations are sent out to collect feedback when the course has already ended. Um, we've already taught the course, it's already the end of the term, and that's when students receive these evaluations. And sometimes these evaluations are implemented to gather data that's needed for a larger division or program or at the college level, and it may not focus specifically on individual instructor course design or teaching styles. And what we want to establish is collecting and responding to student feedback early on, before the end of the semester and throughout the semester. So for example, at the start of the semester as someone had mentioned, to create a sense of belonging, we may want to collect feedback on the first day or that first week, which can really help us to learn what students' expectations and prior experiences are, what kind of prior knowledge they bring to our course. And not only that, but also to establish our expectations of students as they take our course as well. Questions such as, maybe what was your favorite learning experience from last semester and why? Or what was your least favorite and why? Because these types of questions really give us insight into, making maybe minor changes that could make a big difference in student learning from the get-go, just in our courses alone. When we look at the research, student feedback helps in teaching development, provides continuous improvement, allows us to develop reflective skills to grow and learn as educators. And it helps to shape our course design, it promotes change, and provides the opportunity for us to share and talk to students, which a lot of these were actually mentioned in the chat from all of you already. Additionally, with a lot of us in California here, with changes in ed code for distance education courses, really making a plan to collect student feedback about the course, about our teaching, can really help to foster a collaborative learning environment that is inclusive and student-centered and shows instructor interaction and presence, especially for our DE courses then. And I always believe that being transparent and communicating with students really helps to build that trust and respect that is so important in any classroom. And I want to involve them as much as I can and let them know why I am choosing to do certain things a certain way. It could be because of a department or campus, policy. Maybe it's state or federal regulations. I want uh, to be as transparent as I can to explain to the students why it's the why of it, so that students can understand it from my own perspective as well. So big picture first, when I was preparing for this presentation, I came across this visual from the University of Pittsburgh's Center for Teaching and Learning, and they've created this workflow as
I don't know what it is. It's being launched.
Thank you. They've created this workflow as a resource for instructors to intentionally plan in time to collect, reflect, and act on feedback at least 3 times throughout the semester. And so at the top, they have a pre-course survey. And as mentioned earlier, this could be used to collect students' prior learning and knowledge, students' expectations of the course, and then they gather and reflect on this data and then act on it. And then you have the midterm survey. So, you see how things are going. Are there any areas of confusion? Are students losing motivation? Is the workload too much at this point in the course? And then finally, at the end of the course, is the survey as well. Overall, how did the course go? What would students like to see improve for future students who do take the course? And so that's sort of like the bigger picture of what I'd like to present to you today, because I want you to think about your own courses and create a workflow similar to this one here that helps you to plan in time to collect student feedback. Maybe you'd like feedback on a more specific aspect of your teaching. Maybe it's as some of you had mentioned, maybe it's a new teaching style or learning activity that you're implementing, or a new educational tool that you're incorporating. And so your workflow could look a little bit different than the one here. But the key takeaway from this is to be reflective and to think of where and why you would like to gather and collect student feedback. And so as you plan for the upcoming semester, or even before the end of this semester, maybe you want to identify areas you'd like to add this to, and create a workflow that works for you and your students. So why collect feedback early? I always believe that giving students a voice helps to keep my class student-centered. And as mentioned earlier, it also shows instructor presence, especially for online classes. And we want to be as transparent as possible and set a tone of open communication with our students. It really helps to show that we care, that we're willing to listen, and that we value their feedback and their educational experience. When we gather feedback early, we also help to acknowledge the diverse needs, experiences, the backgrounds that our students bring to the classroom. What kind of concerns do students have? Are there campus resources that we can refer students to for support in their learning that they may not be aware of? It also allows us to check in on students and make sure that they understand our own expectations of the course. And you can start to identify what is working well for students and what isn't. Feedback really provides us an opportunity to examine our teaching and to continuously improve on it to really support student success in our classroom. All right, so now that we've covered the why, onto the what to ask them. As I had mentioned earlier, we want to reflect on our course design and structure. Are there specific areas, you want to gather student feedback? Do you want to know what students find helpful and beneficial to completing a learning activity or an assignment in your class? Maybe something that you thought was a good idea or resource really came out a bit more confusing to students. And so you may want to look at that, whether it's the instructions or the setup of that. When deciding on what to ask, you also want to leave room for additional information that students would like to share. They could suggest something that you simply overlooked and didn't really think about from the student's perspective, but because they're the ones going through the course and going through your materials and instructions, they can provide that perspective as well. Also, this allows for students self-reflection in their own learning. And so sort of being responsible and monitoring, what are some of their strengths or weaknesses that they may or may not be aware of, and how can they become better learners? When we allow students to think about their own learning, it really helps them to monitor their growth throughout the course. And it provides us an opportunity to also give students ideas or strategies that can help them to stay on track in their learning. One other note I want to make on this is, when we're thinking about our workflow for student feedback, how many questions do we want to ask? You have to remember, what is it that you're trying to get feedback on? Would it be 3 to 5 questions? Is that enough to gather what you need? Maybe it's more of a check-in on learning. So maybe it's just 1 question or 2 questions. Do you want to utilize open-ended questions for reflection? Are you using multiple choice? And so as you examine your own teaching and your course structure, this is going to be another area that you'll have to decide on that would work best for you and your course and your students. All right. So here's our chat activity 2. What are some questions that you have asked to gather student feedback? Are there areas in your course that you see could be beneficial, that you could add student feedback to? I'll give you a few months to send in your responses for this as well. Definitely. What is working well and what is challenging? I think addressing student challenges in our courses is a really big and beneficial thing to address and communicate with our students. Specifically asking for them to point out 2 things then, yeah, or a number of things. Yes, clarification, any areas of confusion. Yes, pointing out specific class activities that you've structured. Are those beneficial? Are they not? Have they helped in learning? Yeah, very general. What questions do you have for me? I think when we do gather student feedback, some students may not want to ask questions in class or in public. And so providing them an alternative options where it could be anonymous or more private can really help to offer those students an opportunity to share their voice as well. Yes, organization, especially in an online course, is super important. I like that, Rosemary. Temperature checks. How are you doing? Yes, that emotional check-in as well too. Yes, that self-reflection on their own learning. I like, to ask that question at the beginning of the semester and help students realize how far they've come just within the semester. And I mean, some students, they don't realize it until you actually point it out, like, hey, this is where you started, but look at where you're at now, so definitely. All right. Those are great, great strategies and questions. I'm hoping that the chat is also being saved so that we could share these. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we've talked about the why, the what, and so now we're going to move on to the how. As you're creating your plan, you want to think, how do you want to collect feedback? Do you want to collect it in class? Do you want to collect it outside of class? Will you be collecting responses online or in paper? Do you want to add a link to an announcement or share link at the end of a class period? Do you want responses to be anonymous, or would you prefer small group discussions and then move towards maybe sharing as a large group? Are you looking to collect feedback during a live lecture or a live presentation? These are all things that we really have to keep in mind when we're thinking about the how of it. As I had mentioned earlier, when thinking of what type of question you want to ask and how many questions you want to ask, what is it that you would like to gather feedback on? And deciding on what questions you want to ask can really help, decide on the how of, you want to collect this feedback. Um, at our college, we use Canvas as our learning management system. And so I'm going to refer to some of the features that are available on that platform. Later on, I'll also share resources that are outside of Canvas that can easily be shared or embedded in any LMS or shared with students then. So in Canvas, one of the easiest ways to gather feedback is simply to create a survey. Now, in a survey, there are options to have a graded survey where you can give extra points if you'd like to, for students that do respond to a survey. Additionally, you do have the option to have the responses be anonymous as well. Similar to any quiz in Canvas, you can also set, the dates, the availability dates and times for students to complete the survey. And of course, adding your own questions and everything. And so this is something simple that you can just, create and add to your course if you're using Canvas. And I'm sure Blackboard, D2L, all the other LMSs have something similar as well too. Now, additionally, annotated assignment submissions in Canvas allows you to create a file, upload it to an assignment, and then students can then open and annotate that file and resubmit it to the assignment for you. I do want to mention that assignments will be attached to a specific student. And so if you were aiming for anonymous feedback, this may not be the best option. But if you're looking for more maybe individual feedback or individual reflection, this could be an option for more personalized learning and guidance for students. Also, keep in mind that this is a great option for students maybe who are using tablets or are using their smartphones. But if I'm a student and I'm using it on my laptop and I'm using a mouse for annotation, it may not be as easy for me to draw or make annotations. And so providing an opportunity for students to possibly download the file as well and re-upload the file. And so you can still make it an annotated assignment, plus allow for file uploads to the assignment submission. This would at least give the students the options to be able to complete the survey or the feedback then. For those of you who do have access to Studio and Canvas, this could be another option for you to gather feedback as well. And again, if you are leaning towards anonymous responses, you'll probably want to explore other options. But if you'd like, let's say a group discussion, this could be an alternative option as well. Studio is a media tool that allows for instructors and students to collaborate through video and media files and audio files. One feature of Studio is the ability to add comments directly to a video file. And so you as the instructor, you could record a PowerPoint presentation, screen share with question prompts for soliciting student feedback. And as they're watching the video, you can intentionally say, I want you to pause this video and add a comment below, and then you can continue watching the video. And so, this is a different way of collecting feedback, and it could be a good change from a typical text-based survey where students could, watch a video or an alternative format to be able to provide their feedback and response. Especially for distance education courses, this could be a good way to, have those or provide those opportunities for conversations to happen amongst students or amongst you and students then as well. Okay, so I've shared some features in Canvas that can, that can be used to collect feedback. And these next couple strategies that I'll be sharing, these can easily be created using quizzes, discussions, a studio within Canvas. But these could also be used in person, on paper feedback, or through any of any online survey tool that you'd like to use. This first strategy is stop, start, continue. And so these would be the three questions that you give to students. So name one thing we should stop doing, name one thing we should start doing, and then name one thing we should continue doing. And what I really like about this strategy is that it allows students to identify specific areas that I could, easily make changes to. So maybe it's providing recaps at the end of each class period on what we've learned, or at the end of a discussion assignment, maybe providing key themes and takeaways. And so if those are things that students find helpful, I'll make note to continue doing those things based off of the feedback that I received from students. And so this is one strategy that you could use in your courses, even this semester if you'd like. This next strategy is the point of view postcard. And so from the student's perspective, what are things that helps them learn the course material best, or what helps them navigate the Canvas course best? As teachers, we plan, design, and teach our courses from our own perspective, from our own learning. And so what makes sense to us may be a difficult task for our students. For example, I've been using Canvas for many years, and Blackboard before that as well too. And so I'm very familiar with, designing and building my course. But let's say if I have a new student, they've been out of school for a while and they're returning for a degree, they may not be as familiar with navigating, my course, or maybe using the inbox to send me a message. And so are there resources that I could provide that could, or would help not only this student, but all students in my class? And so, using this strategy really helps us to see things, see our own teaching, and see our own course design from the student's perspective. This is an easy and quite popular strategy that I've seen other instructors use, especially in online courses after the completion of a module or a unit. But you could definitely use this for in-class lectures and presentations as well. And so asking students to share with you maybe concepts from your lecture that did not make sense. If there seems to be a trend of confusion, maybe planning for 10 minutes at the start of the next class period, to review the topic or concept again, or providing additional resources, maybe a video or a visual that helps to explain the topic. Being able to make these minor adjustments to our teaching is the type of feedback that we could receive to make it better for our students, as well as for us and our teaching styles as well. Another one is the 1-minute paper, and you don't necessarily have to provide just a minute for students to reflect, but this could be done at the beginning or at the end of class. And you may want to ask, what do you remember from the last time we met? If you're wanting to use this at the beginning of the class period, and what was one thing that you'd learned from the last class period, or what questions did you have from the last class period? If you do that, then you can plan to, start the class period, quickly scan with this 1 minute paper, quickly scan the responses. If there seems to be some themes that are appearing, possibly, address those first before starting for the day, or make a note of it to look into and bring it back at a later class period. But communicating that to your students and letting them know that you are reading their feedback and you are aware of their concerns then, and you will address it at a later date. Exit tickets, before students leave, whether online, in synchronous meetings or in the classroom, you can have them respond to, specific question prompts that you have to help you and guide you in your teaching. And this could be placed, if you're teaching a distance education course, it could be placed at the end of a module and be a prerequisite to complete before moving on to the next module. Or if it's in class, you can just have them write on an index card or on a piece of paper and turn in before they leave the classroom. Again, however you would like to implement these strategies, you're more than welcome to try. As I mentioned before, also, especially for online courses and even face-to-face courses, where you have course materials presented and available online, and adding some type of student feedback at the end can really help your course design for the next time that you teach the class. I like to use this strategy, especially if I've reordered how I present the course material to students. So I want to make sure, does it make sense? It makes sense to me, but does it make sense to the student? Is it easy to follow? Should I provide more instructions, maybe at this point or at that point? Would adding a video explanation or a screencast help students in this area? And then, just any other ideas or notes that I can keep track of as I prepare for next semester then. Is there a question? Oh, oh, all right. All right, and in this last strategy, it's a good way to get student feedback on new things you're trying. It says tech specific, but it doesn't necessarily have to be tech as well. From the beginning, you may want to be transparent with the students and let them know, hey, I'm trying something new this semester and I would really value your honest feedback on it. And so after students have used or tried the new technology, or maybe it was a new learning activity or a new resources, whatever it may be, you want to ask and gather their feedback on it. Remember, you can always be as high tech or low tech as you want with how you collect student feedback. But the important thing is to provide these opportunities for students to share their thoughts and ideas with you. I always feel like getting student feedback really helps to just change the way that I approach teaching and be able to make changes and modifications, whether it's something I can do at the moment during the term of that course, or whether it's something that I'll make note of to change later on. Okay, so I've shared some features in Canvas that can be used to collect student feedback, but I mean, there's so many tools that are available for you that you can use. Of course, a lot of them do come as being paid services or with limited free accounts and all of that too. But especially at your campus, um, if your institution already is a Google campus or a Microsoft campus, you may want to look into what is already currently being offered and paid for through your institution. Um, if you are a Google campus, look into using Google Forms, because these are very easy to create and edit and share with your students, especially if your students are also on the same system, as the same Google accounts and everything. You can easily add these forms into your Canvas courses. And once students respond, you can view the responses in a summary and access the responses in a spreadsheet, and you have everything saved to your account then. And so this really helps with record keeping and organizing as you continue to collect and gather feedback. For those that are Microsoft campus, very similar to Google, we have access to forms and Excel for creating surveys and sharing. And I just recently saw a feature from Microsoft that allows you to embed a form into your PowerPoint presentation to engage and gather feedback during a live presentation. I wanted to try it out, but when I tried to do that, I realized that it wasn't enabled yet at our district level. And so I'm hoping that I can have a conversation with them to be able to enable that, because I feel like it would be, a really great way, great feature to have and to add to the suite that we already have access to. There are other tools such as Qualtrics, which is a very robust survey tool with multiple features. There's a lot of reporting or reports that can be generated from your survey responses and everything. And so if your institution does have a license for this tool, I would highly recommend that you take a look at it and see if it would be something that you would want to use to gather feedback in your course. Other tools include like Poll Everywhere, Slido, this Mentimeter. This morning, our keynote speaker was actually using that to gather feedback and engage the audience members during her presentation. Now, many of these do offer a free version, and when I look at any of these tools, I also look at educational accounts. Do they provide free access to educators and whatnot? And so looking at educational free accounts beyond just the free version. And then also, like with any free account, there are limitations. And so they really just want you to purchase like the premium versions of things. And so if you are planning to look at outside tools, that's just something that you want to keep in mind because you can easily register for a free account, but does it limit you to maybe creating only 5 surveys? Or does it not have any a report, where you can export the responses from students and whatnot? So those are just things to keep in mind. Now, lastly, also, if you teach synchronous online courses, maybe, using Zoom polls would be a great way to gather feedback from students, since you have them all together in a meeting with you as well. Okay, another chat activity here. What tools do you use or have used to collect student feedback? Feel free to share in the chat, and I'll give you a few moments to respond. Oh, Padlet, yes, I forgot about that one. Yep, Microsoft Forms. surveys, yes. Jamboard, answer garden. Outcomer. Oh, I haven't heard of that one either. These are great. I'll add them to my list as well. This is one of the reasons why I love attending, these sort of conferences and symposiums is to really share ideas and get new ideas and tools from other instructors and faculty members, instructional designers, whatever you may be, because it's really about just sharing what's working for you, what's not working for you. Here's what I use. Here's what they use. So this is great. All right, so we've looked at the why, we've looked at what questions to ask, when to ask, how to ask, and so now we're look at what we should do after we collect feedback. Before moving on, though, one thing I do want to point out is that, not all feedback will be rosy and colorful. And, there may be times when we read through the feedback and it comes across as harsh or it's something that we don't agree with. Instead of like, oh, I'm never going to collect student feedback like this again, or or dismissing it, leave it aside, come back when you've had some time to process and really see if the feedback is something that would be relevant to change or if it's not. And so if not, then place it aside and move along. But one important step that we do want to add to our feedback workflow plan is really communicating with students that we read their feedback, that we value their thoughts into the course, and we want to thank them for their time, because I think this is such an important step that we want to be as transparent as we can be with them. And also, at the beginning of our courses, letting the students know that, hey, I'm going to be looking for your honest feedback and opinions on things that I do in this course so that I can help better myself in supporting you. And so, maybe showing students or sharing feedback that would be constructive would help to set the tone as you continue to gather feedback throughout the semester. And so after we collect feedback, when we communicate with students, we want them to know that, they are partners with us in creating this, a productive and positive learning environment. And so we do appreciate their honest and constructive feedback. We also want to share, what some key takeaways or themes are that appear as we evaluate the feedback. And we can share which feedback that we want to address and what we plan to do, because this really helps, I think to demonstrate that we have read and that we value the students' concerns and that we understand their challenges, and maybe sharing resources outside of the classroom that could be helpful. Maybe it's tutoring or student services or counselors. If there are suggestions that we can't or won't change, we can offer an answer as to why as well. I think, another thing as well too, after we collect feedback is to highlight positive themes and trends too. Sometimes, we focus so much on what can be approved or what we missed out on that we sometimes forget to celebrate what we're actually doing good at, or what is actually, working very well for the students. So that's one other thing that you want to make sure you add. And so I'm just going to quickly share some strategies that you can use to help you organize the feedback, in your course design and teaching. And so first is categorizing the feedback, as I've sort of mentioned throughout this presentation as well too, is, whether it's in a notebook that you use, on a spreadsheet, however you want to organize this, what are things that you can change this semester? So maybe it was feedback on due dates or availability of assignments and quizzes. Okay, that's something I can easily change. What are things that you can change next semester? So maybe it was students wanted additional resources for reading, adding videos for alternative learning, or maybe library resources. Okay, I'll look into those resources and I'll add them to my course next semester then. And then lastly, what are things that you cannot change? So for example, maybe the course you are teaching has concepts that need to be taught in a specific order. You're building on knowledge. And so it has to be in that order. Or maybe it's a nursing course that has to have clinical experience. And so these would be things that, we'll want to communicate to students that can't be changed, and tell them the why to it. Next is documenting. So, using the course schedule or the course outline and making notes and documenting ideas that you want to try or implement, or areas that you want to change for next time. You want to, create a consistent practice of documenting teaching, practices in general that are effective and promising in supporting student success. And then also just keeping in mind that, what worked well for one semester may not for another. And so dynamics change, students change. And so it's okay to document all of this as well too, because really we're trying to become reflective educators and teachers, just to improve our own teaching for students then. And don't try to change everything all at once. If something is valuable and would be a great change, make a note to change later, when you do have more time. And if you believe that it'll make a big difference, try small changes, see how it goes, reflect on it, and then repeat the process. Similar, as in the visual that I shared earlier from the University of Pittsburgh, you gather feedback, reflect on it, act, and then you repeat that process then. We hear a lot about teaching in silos, especially in higher education, but it doesn't need to be that way, especially when discussing instructional strategies. And so, we have observations, evaluations, our peers can provide, constructive feedback and share their own experiences attending, events such as this. I also like to read up on trends and new innovative pedagogy that are promising, and share those with my colleagues. We want to practice a reflective teaching practice so that it can help us to become educators, who try something, reflect on it, learn from it, and then repeating that process. If your campus is fortunate enough to have a center for teaching and learning, that would be a great resource to get feedback, get support, and ideas on anything instructional. All right. Chat activity number 4. So how do you organize feedback? Is it on sticky notes that you hopefully will come back to, or do you, have a notebook with you for the semester, or taking down notes and jotting down ideas? Feel free to type in your responses in the chat here. Using Microsoft Forms, I like that. A whiteboard. Excel spreadsheet. Yep. Low tech, pencil, paper. Yep. I still do that too. Yeah, but whatever method works best for you, I would highly recommend, starting that as a practice that you do every semester. In regards to documenting what works well, what have students suggested, how can I improve my teaching? Okay, generative AI. Now, if you haven't been to any of the earlier sessions or you've been living off the grid the past year, uh, you'll be surprised at how advanced generative AI has become. And whether you are, for using it or against using it, it's really here and it's being widely implemented into so many different tools and programs that we use daily. Even in education here, there's just it's going to eventually be everywhere. How many of you have used ChatGPT? Just thumbs up or raise your hand. Yeah. Mhm. I've also used it to help me to brainstorm a lot. But so for student feedback and AI, AI is good for brainstorming and having a starting point for you. And so I've used it multiple times to, provide me with ideas on certain topics or for, summarizing things. And so, for example, I've used ChatGPT to help me write HTML code for Canvas. And so I'll say, okay, I need this content with this, and can you create it like this and this? And then it'll generate the HTML for you. And so I'll copy it into Canvas, and then there may be some minor changes to it, which I'm okay with, but any of the more advanced or expert stuff with HTML, I'm not sure about. But ChatGPT, again, it gives me a good starting point that I can use then. And so two ways that you can use AI to help you in your workflow is to first create questions. And so you can prompt AI by generating a list of questions for student feedback around maybe, use of open educational resources. I'm using this for open educational resources for the first time. Can you generate a list of questions for me that I can ask students for feedback on? And so it'll give you a good start, but you may want to modify those questions more specific to you and your students then. The second way that you can use AI is to summarize your responses. So however you've collected your feedback, and this works, very well for open-ended questions. You can copy and paste the responses directly into ChatGPT and say, provide me a summary from this feedback and tell me what are the top three trends. And so ChatGPT will read through your feedback and generate the top three trends for you. And so you can use this to really organize the feedback and be able to point out, oh, okay, so these were the common themes and these were the takeaways from the summary. And then you can use that to help you as you communicate to your students. Besides ChatGPT, there's another good option that I came across. It's called Claude. It's also a generative AI tool as well too. Again, that you can register for an account. But with this one though, you're able to upload a file. And so when you're gathering feedback and everything, if you can download it as a CSV file or something, you can upload it into this Claude AI tool and say, can you please summarize, this file for me with the top three trends and whatnot. And so that is another option that you can use. I'm not going to go, into the specifics of how to do any of this stuff or anything, but as educators, this is a topic that we do want to be aware of, whether we're for it or not, and how it can potentially change, the future of our own teaching as well as students. And so just again, just being more, a bit open-minded about that then. All right, so today we've discussed, creating a plan for gathering feedback, being intentional. Are there specific areas or times in our course that we would like feedback on? And then determining how often and where, coming up with, questions that we want to ask, open-ended, multiple choice, one question, 3 to 5 questions. And then after that, determining how. Do we want this in person, on Canvas, through a separate tools, survey tool? And then taking time to go through the feedback and to communicate with students, being as transparent as possible. And lastly, just reflecting on the course, and documenting for the future and making notes for ourselves. All right, I know we only have 1 minute left, but thank you again so much for your time and for joining me today. I will stick around if you have any questions, but it is 3 o'clock as well too, and I know it's probably been a long day for a lot of us. So you are more than welcome to leave, or I will be here for questions.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.